So as I mentioned, next week we'll be talking a little bit more about harmonic progression and why certain chords tend to lead to others. But to start off with, this is just kind of a scaffolded, middle step to being able to write more in 4-part music. Because as you saw in the last example with the 1-6-4 chord to the 5-7 to the 1, the more chords in progression that you have in a row, the more complications you have in sort of having to anticipate the voicing so that you don't run into those parallel problems, cross voicing, or any other sorts of balance issues. Okay, so this is kind of a middle step where I've given you the first chord, given you the starting note for the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and then I've given you the soprano and bass from here to the end. And I've told you what chord should be filled out in each of them. Now notice they're all in root position, so we're keeping it simple for now. So the root is always on the bottom, which is why you get a lot of this going on in the bass line. You might remember that from the canon in D example I used before, that da 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 da. It's a lot of up down for those basses when you stay in root position. So the more inversions you have, the less leaping the basses are generally doing. But for now, keep in your bass position and figure out what in the root position, figure out what that tenor and alto line should be in the middle. There are several options. Some tend to be better than others depending on your intent as the composer. So see how well you can do. I'm going to go ahead and let you pause here. So first thing that you'll want to do, or maybe you have a different process, but this is my process and I think it works, is that you're going to want to put the letter names of what you need up here. Okay, so for a 2 chord, we're in the key of F. So a 2 chord would be G, B, and D is what we need. It's actually B flat. That's what makes it a minor triad. And we already have 2 Gs. Okay, so we've already doubled that root. Ideally, we're going to want a B flat and a D. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot with the B flat in the tenor line and D in the alto line. Now let's see if that causes any problems coming from this chord. Doesn't look like it. We don't have any weird parallel fifths or octaves, no cross voicing. It looks like it works. Now when you're writing in 4 parts like this, as you might have seen from this chord's example here, stems up, stems down applies. So sopranos have stems up, altos would have stem down, tenors stem up, basses stem down. Okay, and those altos and tenors sometimes get a little mushed when you're doing this. You'll come up with your own system. I tend to shorten the stem just a little bit, just so it doesn't look quite so messy. Okay, so let's do the next chord. So for your 5 chord, you're going to want C, E, and G. And we've already got 1 C and 1 G. So we definitely need an E in there and probably another C. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to an E in the altos and up to a C in the tenor. Now let's just double check that that works. I don't believe we have any problems. Yep, no parallels, no cross voicing. Seems to be pretty well laid out. Oftentimes I find I'm really nailing it with voice leading if either the alto or the tenor line stays on the same note or above or just below a lot. That tends to be a good sign. Let's do the next one. For your 1 chord, you're going to need F, A, and C. We already have 1 F and we have an A. We need a C and maybe another possible F. So I'm going to try to keep the altos here, see how that works. We'll add that doubled F, and then I'm going to keep the tenors on that C. I'm going to try to keep the tenors kind of chill along the middle here, see how that works. Stem up, stem down, double check, looks good, okay? And then 4 chord, we need B, which is actually B flat, D, F. We've already got a B and a D. So we're gonna need an F and possibly another B flat. So I'm gonna keep the altos on that F because I don't really want them jumping all the way up here. I like to keep them fairly still towards the middle, which means that I should probably have a B flat. I guess close, good. B flat for the tenors. I think that works. Yeah. Now we're back to a 1 chord, so we should have F, A, C. Got one, got one. We need another A, and we need possibly another F as well. I'm going to keep the altos on that F, and maybe tenors will give you that A. There we go. Up, down, double check. Looks good. Okay, and then a couple more. We got a 5 chord. We're gonna need C, E, and G. And kind of what I mentioned before, like this is training wheels up here. If you need to write out the letters, do it. Otherwise, just glance at your cheat sheet. It has these sets of letters on there so you can see what needs to be in each of those chords. And eventually you don't need to write it up there. You're just looking here and going, okay, I need another, I've got both C's, I've got the root, I need an E and a G, etc. Okay. So this one, I'm gonna give, let's see, we already have 2 C's. Let's see, what do I wanna do? Let's put the E here and G down here. I still don't have any parallel motion issues, and that gives me that whole chord. Okay, now we have 5-1. Look familiar? It's at the end of a phrase. Haha! It's a cadence. It's a perfect authentic cadence. So we've got our bass move done for us. We need F, A, C to make up that last final chord. The common tone would be what? The common tone would be C. Oh, and they blocked that for us. Interesting. Because I've already got this C moving here and this C is already moving here, so we can't do that. Let's just go ahead and fill out the middle then. Do we have a leading tone? Our leading tone is E, so let's see if we can't keep that moving up, maybe? So that gives you an F. I always like our leading tone resolving upward. So now I've got 2 F's and an A, and then I'll need a C. We could have our tenors leap up to a C. That's fine. Maybe not my most brilliant work ever, but it'll work. Okay, and there it is. Maybe. Do I have a 5th here? No, I do not. Should be good. So some people are afraid of making the tenor and bass too far apart. I don't personally find that to be a problem in voicing. You can spread these out. Most of you will know instinctually as choral people what would be too far or what might look funny or sound funny. But generally speaking, closer together works better up here, farther apart works better down here. Again, generally. So this is a good way to start ourselves into 4-part voice leading, but we might want to focus as you're beginning on more of the analysis side of things, which is what we're going to do in the next video. I would encourage you, because part of learning how to do this, especially if I were to not have written any of the guides up here and just given you the chords below, part of learning how to do that is a little bit of trial and error and just familiarity with how it's generally done by other composers. So on this next video, we're going to be analyzing a small section of a Bach chorale. Bach is brilliant. He knows how to do this. He's kind of the father of all of this. So looking through some Bach chorales and just kind of listening to them, playing them if you would like, or even 4-part music in an old hymn book works as well too. It's pretty traditional and uses a lot of these same chord progressions. And just watching and being aware of what each, particularly the middle voices, are doing, and looking out for inversions. You'll find things you don't recognize because we haven't covered everything yet, but the more familiar you can be with what this voice leading usually looks like in its context, either in a chorale or a hymn, the better off you're going to be.